Welcome to FPTV New Releases, where it is my pleasure to be joined by Forbidden Planet's head book buyer, Laura Jane Dodd. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, thank you. We're actually tonight got one of my absolute fave authors, so I'm very, very excited to be here.
And that absolute fave author, and this is a true story because Laura's been getting very excited about this interview. That absolute favourite author is the spectacularly talented Edward Carey, here to talk to us about his latest novel, The Swallowed Man. How are you, mate?
Very well, thank you. And it's wonderful to be here. It's wonderful to hear English accents. God, I've missed them.
So just tell us, I know you told us off camera, where are you coming at us from, Edward?
I'm in Austin, Texas, and I was in London in March when everything happened, and I fled back to be with my wife and family, and we've been here ever since. And the house, the small house we're living in, it has not grown over
I was going to say, you know, if you're going to be stuck anywhere in Texas, my view is the city you want to be stuck in is Austin. But then I was going to say, because the live music scene's so fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. What live music? No, everybody's walking around with a mask. The music has been forbidden. You know, you can listen to see if there's any whining from a cactus.
Yeah,
that's
right.
What we are. Yeah.
It's like being trapped in Footloose, I guess. You know, so you know, I could see that going on. So I know that Laura is like I said, big huge fan, bursting with questions for you. Take it away, Laura.
Yes. So for anyone who hasn't yet heard of The Swallowed Man, what can you tell us about it?
Well, it is unfortunately painfully relevant today because it's the 2 years that Geppetto, Pinocchio's father, spent inside an enormous sea beast. And this is his account of what it's like to be in lockdown, in a really severe piece of lockdown, inside a massive fish. And fortunately for him, a huge fishing vessel was swallowed inside. So he lives inside this shipwreck, and there he makes art and tries to survive. He can't get out, and he is slowly being digested, as am I slowly being digested here in Austin, Texas.
Well, I mean, has
follow up with the next question there, Laura.
Has Pinocchio always been a favourite tale of yours?
Yeah, I've always loved it. But I think it was only maybe 20 years ago or so that I actually picked up Collodi's original. Before I had images of Walt Disney's version, which is not what the original is at all. The original is very strange, sinister, beautiful. It's a really beautiful book. And one of those wonderful things in that book is in about the 3rd chapter, Pinocchio destroys the talking cricket with a mallet. And it's dead. No more Jiminy Cricket. And there's wonderful things. It's a really beautiful book, and it's really about what is it to be a human being. And there's something so moving about Pinocchio. He was the almost the patron saint of all objects. This living object that so wants to be a human. It's so moving. It's so strange. And right at the end of the book, the most beautiful, terrifying, almost one of those extraordinary betrayals in all literature, is that when Pinocchio is turned finally into a flesh child, in the book, the wooden version of him stays behind. And so he's there. The flesh child is looking at the lifeless wooden child. And the book closes on the flesh child laughing at his former wooden self. And it's terrifying and deeply moving.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such an excellent, well-made point, to be honest. Rather chilling stuff. Sorry, Laura, I was ruminating there. I was captivated by your answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
It sounds like almost something from Bloodborne or something like that. I've been playing a lot of computer games during lockdown, so yeah, a bit too real. So, like the Seabeast within the novel, is this a nod to your nautical heritage?
No, I mean, I do have I went to a place called school called Pangbourne in Berkshire, where I was supposed to be trained to be a naval officer. And my father had been there, and he was in the Navy, my grandfather, and going back. And then finally I arrived there, and here I am now, not in the Navy, and nor likely to be. And it wasn't to me, but no, I think I've run from that with great passion. And so you find me landlocked in the center of Texas, about as far from the ocean as it's possible.
Yeah. It almost feels like escaping that nautical history in as convincing way as possible. You couldn't really get that much further from a huge ocean mass.
Austin does not feel like Portsmouth.
I mean, that's a fair point. So you mentioned the use of objects before. So just thinking back to the fabulous Ironmonger trilogy, of which I've got book 1 here, Heap House, and the whole thing with the birth objects. Where did your fascination for objects come from?
Well, I think, we collect our objects around us, and they're sort of our defense against the world. We may not think of them like that, but they absolutely are. But I also think of those bits of those, when we die, it always seems extraordinary that our objects don't die with us. But they persist, and the objects that survived tell our stories. There's almost all that's left of our stories, apart from stories themselves. And I think there are moments, like when I was young, I went to see the Foundling Museum in London, which is where, and you can see these extraordinary objects, and they break your heart when you see the mothers, when they left off the children. Invariably, the mothers left a small object, like a thimble or the label of a gin bottle, all sorts of strange objects there. And in it, there is a life contained, and these objects are incredibly eloquent. And one of the things I long to do, and long to do again, if I can ever leave bloody Texas, is to go mudlarking on the shores of the Thames. I do it, my kids love to do it, and there's something so profound at, every low tide. London's history is there in the objects, and you pick it up and it feels like you're touching the past. So yeah, I've always been fascinated. I grew up in a house that was supposed to be the foundations of it were supposed to be a Saxon hall, and then the rest of it built around it was Tudor, and it just felt like the past was always there, and you could get lost and you can almost touch it. And I think objects, they speak, because I'm here, I'm in Texas. Did I mention that before? One also, I long for English things, and I've sort of surrounded myself with stuff. And actually, one of the things that's happened during this pandemic is my son brought tons of stuff back from his mudlarking times, and he's been sorting through them. And it's been like that, I can touch another country, I can touch another past.
Mm.
That's really so interesting. Laura and I were talking before we came online about the illustrations that accompany your text, which are absolutely kind of stunningly and beautifully weird. How does your process work with regard to images and words? Which comes first, and what are you accessing in your brain when you're coming up with that stuff?
Well, they both now, for me, writing and drawing go together. I can't separate the pair of them. I'll never publish another book which doesn't involve both. But for this book, I actually sat here in this chair in the dark and wrote it, making it as sort of bleak as possible. But I kept thinking, how can he communicate? How can he be? One of the things for me as a writer is I need to see my characters. I long to see them. And also, one of the things that a writer is always desperately trying to do is not write, to escape from writing, to do something else. And for me, to escape the writing, I draw, and to escape the drawing, I write. But to understand my characters, I want to draw them, or I sculpt them. You see the wooden woman behind me is from another novel. It's actually, she's fully articulated. I carved her when I was living in Ireland. She's Madame Tussaud, from a novel I wrote. And this is, here's Pinocchio. But I thought, Geppetto's an artist, and he made his son. He's a creator, and I think of him, he's like Frankenstein. He created a sort of monster. And so he would have to create in the darkness, in the whale, to survive, to prove to himself that he's still a human being. Pinocchio's always asking, what is a human being? What is a human being? It seems to me Geppetto in the whale is asking the same question. So as I sat and read, I thought, what art would he make? And I thought, well, he would have ship's biscuit. So I said, this bust is made out of ship's biscuit, mushed down. And I thought, well, what does he paint with? Well, he's grown this huge beard. So I got him to paint, and you see these brushes made out of human beard. I haven't got a beard. This is 50 years of beard growth. I go to a friend and say, please, can I have some of your beard? And can I paint with it? But I also thought early on, what would he draw with? And I thought, of course, he has no ink. But the shark's eating squid and octopus. And so I thought, yes, the ink sac. So the drawings in ink in the book are actually drawn in squid ink. So I could actually feel what it was like. And so the whole process I was trying to get as much involved. And years ago, I picked up these beautiful bits of wood that had been washed and sucked by the ocean. And in them, I thought I'd paint Geppetto's lost loves. So there's one of them there.
Wow.
And so I just kept on thinking, what else? What he was creating? And I feel like we've all felt this during this pandemic. He's creating to stay alive, to actually find a worth as a human being, to defend himself against his isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. What a beautifully thought out answer. What an incredibly animated answer as well. It's a pleasure. I wish you had more than 10 minutes to chat to, mate, because I could just listen to you talk about this stuff for an hour. Laura, I know you got more questions.
Definitely. So what can you tell us about your Drawing a Day project that you're doing over on your Twitter account at the moment?
So after I rushed back here, I sat down, suddenly time opened up. We didn't know how long this was going to go on for. And I was working on a really rather bleak novel. And I thought, I can't do that now. I need to find something else to do. And so I just thought without even really thinking about it on Twitter, I said, I'm going to do a drawing a day and post it until this is all over.
Right.
Here I am. Today's drawing would be number 260. And so, but I'll keep going. I'll keep going till the end, I think. And it's become something else. Some days I go, no, not again. It actually keeps me calm. And sometimes, someone will say, could you please draw me a capybara?
Yes.
Of course, you must have one. Whatever, people say, different writers or different, people, or when someone dies, or when Rudy Giuliani starts leaking strange
yes, absolutely. Starts leaking ink squid from his head. Squid ink.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have to draw these things. And so, Geppetto writes a journal in the shark. I've never written a journal in my life, but this is actually, these quarantine drawings is a kind of journal. And I've just discovered that Gallic, who published this book, will publish next year in time for sort of Christmas, the pandemic drawings, by which time...
Right, absolutely great.
He will be free. Yeah. And I can be on the Thames foreshore, picking up beautiful rubbish.
Oh.
Yeah. Wow, that's such a great thing to do. The great thing about that the story behind that to me is that when you say, when you've got into a number of drawings, it sounds like the punchline of a joke, but it's actually, and it landed like that with us, but it's actually the truth. It's actually what is going on. This interminable, endless, some kaleidoscope run at the moment. I think it's such an interesting thing to do, though, and such also the fact that you're going to produce an actual artifact, a book out of it in the end. I think that's a lovely way. That's a lovely future for it to have.
I'm so glad it's going to happen, and because these days have been so endless and seemingly the same for us. One of the things I do every 50 days is I put them all out together. So last time I did it, was 250 of them. And it's now, when I lay them out on the floor, it takes out, pretty much, the surface of our house now as it as it goes on, but it's a real way of measuring time. You forget so much.
Yes.
And then I can look back on a time, you know, oh, Diana Rigg died on that day, or something like that, or just looking at it all. And we never measure time somehow. Before this is this pandemic has been such a profound way of measuring time, I think.
Yeah. I think that's such a well-made point. Speaking of time, our time together is almost over. So, Laura, I know you've got one more question.
So, yes. So other than your drawing project, which has taken on a life of its own, what else has been keeping you sane during lockdown?
Well, I don't know if this has kept me sane, but I've been teaching at the university here, but all virtual, all by Zoom, and seeing the kids writing has been a wonderful thing, and that's sort of cheering, and then really using this time, because there's nowhere else to go to travel in their writing, has been fantastic. And the other thing I've done is that shortly after doing the drawing a day, I've started writing a totally new novel, and I'm now on the second draft of it. So, you have to keep busy, I think, you know. And communicating with people always on this damn computer. It has been lovely. You can still sort of touch, you can still communicate. Thank God for it. I loathe Zoom. I'll never miss it when this is all over. But God knows it's kept us all going, I think.
Yeah, here. And yeah, that's a very strong point, I think. So, in closing, this has been FPTV New Releases. We have had the privilege of talking to Edward Carey about the pandemic, about mudlarking, and about his fantastically intelligent and creative new novel, The Swallowed Man, which you can order from the links attached to this interview. Edward, it's so lovely to meet you, mate, and so lovely to chat with you.
Thank you so much. It's been such a joy.
Take care, mate. We'll see you very soon. All the best.